we should get started. What do you think, Kate?
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready to give you all the knowledge I've got on keeping
All right.
control in your clinics.
Awesome. So good afternoon, good evening, or maybe if you are watching the recording of this in the future, welcome. My name is Ishara. I'm the head of product marketing at Vetstoria. And with me, I have Kate. How's it going, Kate?
Good, good. Thank you for having me. So my name's Kate. I think I will probably know most of you, or hopefully have been able to speak with some of you before. I'm the customer success manager at Vetstoria. So I predominantly look after clinics in Europe, UK and America. Sometimes have dabbled with a few clinics in Australia as well, but it's my role just to help make sure that you're optimizing your Vetstoria platform and really let us help you manage, keep control of some of the crazy hectic stuff that's going in your clinic and make sure you're using the booking tool to the best of its capabilities.
Yeah, of course. I'm very excited to be, talking about this very specific topic. And just like I mentioned before, feel free to let me know on what you feel maintaining control of your schedule means to you. We've got some responses before, and we heard from Vicky, who shared her responses saying that, sometimes clinics, of course, run in a certain way. We all, have very specific ways where certain appointments are set up. And when you open it up to pet owners, you're not very sure if they know, how to go ahead and book that appointment. And sometimes with online booking, you don't really have that assurance as to how it's going to work unless you really get to know that tool, which is something that, Vetstoria helps you manage. We also had, Letitia said that, it's kind of the same thing as well, especially for pet owners. When you open up something like online booking, you're not really sure how they'll go about making those appointments. And I'm going to tell you the truth as a pet owner, Kate. I have 3 dogs. For me, I just want to be able to get the appointment that I want, sometimes as early as possible, depending on the occasion. And I'm not always a fan of picking up that phone. I'd rather just do something online and just be done with it. So if I also, as a pet owner, have a way to do it conveniently, I would love that. But yeah, as a pet owner, I just want to make sure my dog gets that appointment. So I do understand that whole, situation of thinking,
Yeah.
how can it be?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I know from the clinics I've spoken to, as I said, I've been lucky enough to speak with loads of different clinics, different roles, vets, reception teams. And I think the biggest fear is, I mean, we know that pet owners sometimes need their hands held throughout the booking process. And I think the fear is giving them control, and we don't want them to book into random slots at random times. And it's just the fear that if it's not going through a telephone call, it will get a bit hectic on their side, and they'll be able to, cause havoc with what you want to show in your calendar.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to know that we want to mirror your needs and all the restrictions and the rules that you've got in your clinic. We actually have the ability to mirror that on online booking platform. So even though it is scary, and I know it can be a little bit daunting, taking that step to move online, we're actually really lucky that we've got so many different tips and tricks that we can show you to make sure that you can breathe and have faith that the pet owner will only be able to access the appointments that you want them to see.
Yeah, we also heard from Valerie Peak from Belton Vet Clinic, who said, correctly scheduled online appointments can be, a little nerve-wracking as well. So maybe let's go deep into it, Kate, based on, some of the, responses that we got, especially we heard from Korea Wellwall, who mentioned from Fair City Vets, who mentioned short staff has been a bit of an issue. Karen Robinson also said staffing issues, and I know staffing issues is quite an issue. So let's take the concern of staff shortage. We know that is a reason why clinics are trying so hard to maintain control. So how can we leverage Vetstoria to try manage that?
Yeah, and we've seen it across the industry. Short staffing is such a big problem, whether that's still the repercussions of COVID or staff burnout. And we know that the recruitment process is just, sometimes it feels impossible. So the main goals with Vetstoria is to mainly, first of all, take some time away from the task that the reception team predominantly have. So if we can save a few minutes here and there with non-urgent appointments booked online, we can give them just a second to breathe and give the pet owners that come into the clinic their full attention and good service that they obviously want to provide. And secondly, as I mentioned before, with short staffing, you might have limits on your availability, but if we know that what your calendar shows is mirrored on Vetstoria, then the pet owner can still have access to the limited availability that you've got. So what I'll do is I'll share my screen with you and take you through the platform and show you a few ways to adjust a few things. I think what I'd like to show you is a few ways to put in any rules or restrictions, ways to, so say if you didn't have enough vets, to keep some nurse appointments available, for example. Then we've got some ways to show the best ways to communicate with the pet owner, because we know that, as I said, we want to get as much information across to them as possible. And then finally, just automation. That will probably be my main word for the whole webinar. But if we can automate small tasks, throw it to the online platform, then again, it gives your team a lot more breathing room and time to focus on the more important tasks. So if I share my screen.
Yeah, I'm quite excited, especially, you mentioned, Kate, how about showing that limited availability sometimes, especially with like staff shortages. I'm interested to, kind of go deep and see how we can do that.
Yeah, perfect. So this is my demo account. So obviously absolutely no data here. Obviously all of your platforms will have hundreds and thousands of appointments coming in. But what we've got is with this demo tool. So if you go to settings, and this is where, and then appointments, this is where we get to start to add in our own adjustments. And again, this will be probably specific to different clinics and different regions, what you feel is fitting and what suits. But this is where we start to get a little bit more control over what the pet owner can see. So if I go to availability, you're about to see the holy grail of keeping control with appointment types. Yeah. So we'll start here with gap to earliest available slot, reserve slot count, and max appointment counts. So I don't know if Ishara, have you seen any of this type of thing before?
Yes, I have. But I would like to kind of go deep into, how we can best make use of gap to the earliest available slot, for example. Like, how does that really help and why is it important?
Yeah, so one example is, and this will probably be a little bit more for my UK-based clinics, when we had that huge vaccination shortage last year, I think now, so it didn't help in the height of COVID. Then we had the vaccination shortages. So clinics weren't getting vaccinations on time or in the right amounts. So what we could do with gap to earliest available slot, if you've got your annual vaccinations, it's not an urgent appointment, and you want to push it back. So you might have a few available slots in the day, but you want to save them for consultations for sick and injured pets or maybe emergency walk-ins. So what we can do with the gap to earliest available slot is push it back to as little or as much as you'd like. And this means that if I'm a pet owner and I go online to book a vaccination for my pet, I won't be able to see the next available appointment for 3 days, for example. And that means we can help the pet owner. They're still seeing some availability. They're still getting what they want, the ability to book online. But in the clinic that you've got that gap to make sure that it's not piling up, and you can stagger the appointments, again, making sure there's a good availability, but making sure you don't get bombarded with non-urgent appointments in the clinic.
Okay. Kate, I would like to go through the max appointment count. I know it's a feature that we added like a few months ago, and I know it's exciting for some of the clinics that are already using it as well. And I know it's perfect, especially to maintain control around like whenever you have staff shortages. Can you take us through the max appointment count?
Sure. So as I said, if you're short on vets, for example, and you want to save some slots for emergency appointments, emergency walk-ins. So we've got here the maximum slot count and the reserve slot count. So the max appointment count is how many you want booked a day. So maybe for an annual vaccination, you know that it's so busy at the moment, you only want to have 2 slots available for vaccinations to be booked. So you can do max 2 a day, and that will be across all calendars, all clinicians, a max of 2 appointments made a day. Then we've got the reserve slot count, and that's based per clinician or per calendar, depending on how you set it up. And that keeps a certain amount of slots reserved. So again, really great if you've got emergency walk-ins, or you're not too sure what's going on, you don't have a set calendar of what's coming through. So you can reserve for Dr. Kate Lamont, you know that I want to keep at least 4 appointments a day for emergencies, so we can add that in here, and it gives you a little bit more control over how many are coming in. We've also seen it's really useful if you had the appointment available for health certificates or any traveling certificates and admin appointments. You know, they take up a lot of time. Sometimes they can take an hour long, so maybe you only want to have 1 of them a day. So just giving you a bit more control on the back end.
Nice. Okay.
And
so for example, Kate, this is something that you mentioned very briefly as well. Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay. Are we good? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool. Did you want to continue? I think there was something.
Yeah, no, I just saw a question come through about new clients.
Yeah.
And while we're on the appointments, great time to show you. So as you can see here, ooh, there we go. We've got the ability to filter which appointment types are available for what type of pet owner. So we've got the ability to do all clients, new clients, or returning clients only. And that, again, maybe you just want to see new clients for puppy and kitten appointments. We've got the ability to do that here. But I'll be able to show in a bit more detail the best setup for new clients a little bit later on. I'll show you some of the best ways to manage that as well. But I think, did you have another question about the
I did have a question. Yeah, especially around when you have like staff shortages and stuff, and if you do want to just, add holidays, for example, how can you do that? I know there was a new feature update that we did around being able to add date ranges as well. So this way you can reopen when you when you're fully staffed and things like that. So how do you go about adding holidays?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways we can do, and it depends if you want to do slot exclusions based on the day or based on a few days. So you mentioned the holiday function.
Yeah.
And I've got that here. So that's under advanced settings and then holiday. So we can import all the normal holidays that you've got. But for example, if we go back to when COVID was really, we didn't know what was going on, and you might know that you're going to have to suddenly close the clinic for 2 weeks to isolate, or you've gone back into a lockdown, for example, you can add the holidays in here. So I'll add a new holiday. And you can select the duration. So maybe it's 1 day, 2 days, a few weeks. And again, you can add in if it's for just one vet or for all the vets or nurses, and then add the description. So that automatically blocks out the time. So it means a pet owner can go on and book in advance after that time, but you've still got a little bit of control. No one's going to book in when no one's there. And make sure the pet owner's booking in the right places. And then if you want to get a little bit more specific, we can go to the slot exclusions. And I saw some questions come through, and I've been talking to clinics before. They said, we're really worried that if we open up availability online, too many people are going to book in when we've just opened. Start of the day, we're going to have too many vaccinations booked in. And again, we've got issues with emergency walk-ins. So we can add per day different rules. So I've got the opening hours, lunch breaks, for example. And here's an example of Monday mornings. We blocked off the first 3 hours of the day because you don't want any non-urgent appointments in. And again, we can customize that per appointment type, per species, and per clinician as well. There we go. All of the aspects there, we can customize it. So you can do rules based on different days of the week, different vets. So you can really fine tune it to suit your specific clinic needs and not allow pet owners to book in the wrong times.
what I really liked and also stood out to me was, Kate, even when you added the holidays, one thing was it's quite cool to import the holidays so you don't have to add, things that are like default public holidays for you. But also the best part is you can add it per clinician. And I think even with slot exclusions, you can add it per clinician as well, which makes it easy when you have multiple clinicians with various schedules and you want to apply it, based on their preferences. That's quite great. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
I
it
mean,
quite easy
especially
to
when we've
manage.
got vets that might be out for COVID. Oh, sorry, I think there might be a delay again.
I know, I just realized it. Yeah.
I was just going to say with people coming out for COVID last minute, they're going to be off sick, isolating. We can pop it in a holiday and block out their schedule as well. So it's another good way to keep control when you've got some of those issues coming in.
Cool. I did want to, I know we had some questions coming around time management. I think, for example, Gillian from Emla Lodge mentioned that one of her biggest issues is time management, because it offers online booking. Yes, it reduces your phone calls and then you have time. But when you use the tool, what are the specific features that we can dive into that will help us save time?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. So every appointment made online reduces time on the phone in clinics. So that could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, taking as much time from across the day as possible, taking it online so you have a bit more breathing room in the clinic. So you're spot on there. I also thought a great feature we've got is if the pet owner books an appointment and then last minute I've decided I can't make it, and instead of me calling up, what we can do instead is, I've got it up here for you. There we go. Apologies, my computer's, there we go. So I've booked in this appointment and Vetstoria generates the appointment confirmation, sends to the pet owner in the same way that you get the confirmation email that Kate's booked in for Fluffy here. Because I was in such a rush to book online, I've realized it's my birthday on that day. Can't make it anymore. Definitely don't want to be going to the vet. So I can reschedule on my own time. Oh, let's see, I can reschedule that on my own time. There we go. And it would be the same way, and we'll still only be able to reschedule in the slots that you'd like available. I go through it as normal and I can update that for myself. So it gives the pet owner a little bit more autonomy over where they want to book in and saves another phone call for you as well. And if I go back to the booking tool, if we really focus on time management, I wanted to go over, we touched on the cat vaccination shortages, for example, and also new client management. So I know new clients is something that's really difficult to manage. I mean, after COVID, we're opening books again, and we want to make sure that when you're accepting new clients, it's running smoothly and you know when and where you want them to book in. So similar to what we showed before with the appointment types, what we'd recommend is adding an appointment type just for the new clients. So we've got maybe new client appointment, new clients. And in the same way I showed you before, you can push that back 24 hours, 48 hours to give you a bit more control in the clinic to collect information about the new client. And the really exciting thing we've got is the new client form. So I wonder if any of you have seen this before. Maybe you've heard a little bit about it. But you're opening your books. You want to make sure that you've got the time for your reception team to collect as much information before the person arrives at the front desk, and there's 1,000 other things going on. So what we've got is the new client form, which you simply just turn on and collect as much or as little of this information as possible. We've also got the opportunity to collect previous vet details, postcodes, titles of the pet owner, and all their details that are collected in the normal way of the booking tool will come through as well. So this information gets sent directly to your reception team. And as I showed you before, push that back 48 hours so you've got the time to get that information ready for their arrival. And I think we've got a few questions come through. So yeah, Vicky mentioned before about the new client. So this is a good way to manage it and manage their expectations as well. So by by making sure we can collect all that information. We can push back the appointments. It makes it easier on your reception team. And also we want to communicate with the pet owner as well. So I've got a few disclaimers to show you. There we go. So you mentioned that you didn't want anyone to book in double appointments, and we've had pet owners there finally being able to book in as a new client, but you want to manage their expectations and say maybe there's going to be a delay, or maybe you're not accepting new clients at this time. So we've got a little example of a disclaimer page here. You've got a high number of registrations, so there's going to be a 2-week delay for the initial appointment, for example. So we're just trying to target them as much as we can along the booking process. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think as a pet owner, I appreciate this because, even when you look at things like client retention, for example, other than like really good service, I like the fact that if I can be prepped well for a visit. So I feel like this, seeing the disclaimer or just getting that information like right beforehand, like communicating like what to expect and what not to expect, just setting that whole expectations. I think, that's really important, and it's cool that, we can do that. We have one more question coming in, Kate. We know that, especially around time management, we know that sometimes, the front desk staff, they spend a lot of time like sending things like reminders and confirmations and stuff. And these are things that we can automate with Vetstoria as well. How can we do that?
Yeah, so you're spot on. And there's a few different ways that different clinics send out reminders. So we've got iRecall, maybe you send it directly from the PIMs that you're using. But what we can do is create custom booking links. So that's under digital marketing, just on the side here. And you can create special links for whatever appointment you would like. So we've got a good example here of the vaccination backlogs that we touched on it previously. There wasn't enough vaccinations, for example. So we've got the vaccination backlog, and you get the ability to adjust it the exact same way as a normal appointment. So you've got the duration, you've got the reserved slot count, and what's really useful here is the gap to earliest available slot. So clinics tend to send out their vaccination reminders 4 weeks in advance. So we've got the ability to push it back 4 weeks, and then that the pet owner just needs to click this link. The only option they've got is to book in for that vaccination. And you can send it out in batches as you see fit. So you've got this first group of pets that are overdue their vaccination. You can send out this custom link, and you can see here it generates the link for you. And this can be pasted into your iRecall messages or any reminders that you've got going from your PIMs. So the pet owner can just click and book in, and they know it's scheduled for 4 weeks' time in the same way they'd book a normal appointment. So again, it saves your team time going and calling and sending out all this stuff. It's just another really easy way to automate the process for them.
Nice.
Was there any other questions? I think I can see a few questions coming through. Perfect. So can any double bookings occur? Great question. So what we're really lucky with Vetstoria is that we take the live data of your calendar. So when we go to book an appointment, I can see all the slots available. So let me take you through. Gosh, can't see. There we go. Test my settings. So we drag through all the information that you want to see on from your calendar. So I could go through it as normal. And what I see is, as I said, the live availability. So it's kind of first come, first serve. So if someone on your reception team is also booking an appointment, I'm just about to click 8:30, but in the clinic, someone else has just booked that. When I go through, it won't let me book. So it's impossible to get a double booking, because as soon as it's gone by someone on reception's booked in, it automatically goes. So you don't need to worry about any double bookings or anyone turning up at the same time as someone else. So that's something you don't need to worry about. And another question, what about emergency? So this is a question about emergency slots that we don't want booked. So I assume that's a little bit to do with you don't want to people booking in, maybe if you want to save some slots for emergency walk-ins. So that could be one thing. So you've got the ability to anything that's blocked off on your PIMS account, we can't have access to. And again, in the same way we have the slot exclusions, if you wanted to save some time for emergencies, you can block it out that way. But also, if you mean you don't want anyone booking an emergency appointment through online, the online platform, you know, we want to make sure any sick pets are seen as soon as possible. What we've got is the ability to screen appointments that are coming through. So obviously the worst case scenario would be someone tries to book an appointment and it's an emergency and they end up waiting a week and, you know, we don't end up seeing the pet. So that's not what we want. And it's something that we've worked really hard to prevent. So you can see here the appointment screening. We've got the ability to add any words you'd like, keywords, we've got COVID, we've got operation, blood with all the spelling mistakes here as well. And what we can do is this triggers a pop-up. So if they did put in something about bleeding, or blood, this will pop up and it says, you know, you might be booking an emergency appointment. Please, if it is an emergency, call us. And there's another way to just redirect them to either call your clinic or maybe you have another emergency number that we can direct them to. Again, maybe they say, no, it's just for a blood test. So they can go in and select, no, it's not an emergency. And then they can continue with the booking process. So again, it just gives you a little bit of control and peace of mind that you're not going to end up missing any urgent appointments. So I hope that answered your question. Let me know if you'd like me to go over anything else.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I also notice, Kate, with the keywords that you say that if it's possible, I would love to see how it actually looks like when someone does type in a word, like, you know, how that, you know, prompts them to, you know, kind of tell them, okay, maybe they should be calling the practice instead.
Yeah.
Other than that, what I also noticed was in the settings, when you do set up a keyword, you can apply it based on the type. Like I see a drop down saying all, does that mean you can apply it per the appointment type as well?
Exactly. So it's per appointment type, and you can add as much or as little information to pop up as you'd like. So we've got informative or preventative, so you can inform them to please bring in a sample, for example. Or you've got more information if they're booking in for a holiday, vacation, health certificate, maybe you want them to call as well. So there's lots of different ways you can communicate with them as they go through. But let me show you what it looks like. So I'll go through here and select my time. Obviously, a lot more availability on my demo tool than I'm sure you've got in the clinics in real life. But I'll pop my information in and we'll go with trusty Fluffy. And I'll put in blood. There we go. So you can see here, okay, it comes up, no, this is not an emergency. So maybe I'm about to say blood test, but we can add in your telephone number. And again, the information that pops up is completely customizable, but it just gives you that peace of mind that you're not going to miss anything that really does need urgent attention. Again, if they do, if you would like, we can add another disclaimer with any emergency contact information for the pet owner to have as well. So you're checking it off to make sure that they're aware that if even if they're a little bit concerned that it might need urgent attention, please call the clinic.
There's a follow-up question on that, and I think it's a pretty good one as well from Lily. So especially when you set in keywords to screen certain appointments, do you have to include every typo, or is it smart enough to detect typos? Like I think that's a very good one, because say, for example, vaccination, there's a chance I might just put vax.
Yeah, or you're in a rush, or you're like me and I have terrible spelling. So what we've got here is we normally add in the misspells. So I've got here, so we can add any misspellings along the way. Some will be more obvious and common as others, but we can add in as many as you'd like. There's no limit on the amount of words you can add. So we tend to just put in any options, and then we can still cover all bases there along the way. I mean, you'll tend to have some more obvious spelling mistakes, again, as you said, vaccination, maybe you're spelling blood wrong, or whatever it might be, blood with one O, maybe you want to put in, but we can add all that in for you to make sure, again, that you don't need to worry about anything slipping through the net. Nice. Oh, yeah, exactly. That is a very difficult word to spell. Diarrhea, if anyone can't see that. Yep. I also can't spell that, but yeah, amazing. No limits. And again, it just gives you that peace of mind that you don't need to worry about missing anything. So those were the main things I wanted to go over. Is there any other questions or any other queries from anyone about losing control or any other things you'd like us to cover?
So there is one question coming in about leveraging something like telemedicine to use as a triaging tool, especially when you either don't have, enough staff or to like sort of manage the traffic within the practice. How would we leverage a feature like that, Kate?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And again, it links to having short staff and, maybe people are out for COVID, but they're fit and well enough to take a few appointments at home. So we've got the ability to, in the same way, it says under this drop down, my favorite drop down of all time, we've got the availability, but then we've also got the telemedicine. So you can turn telemedicine on for as many or as little appointments as you'd like. We normally see it works really well with maybe a nurse recheck or maybe a consultation before surgery, something along those lines. And you can set that up with telemedicine. Again, we can make sure that we can also do it with a custom link as well. If you don't want it to be on the main booking tool, similar to how we did for the vaccinations, we can set up telemedicine appointments and they can be sent out or implemented on your website as a video consultation. And again, it takes the pressure off staff that are in the clinic because video appointments can be done out of hours. They can be done by remote staff. Maybe you've got access to vets that can't physically come into the clinic. So it's a good way to just make sure you're not missing any appointments that could be done over video, which is quite a good way to make sure that everyone's seen, which is good. And I also,
as a pet owner, I feel like whenever I build pretty good rapport with a certain clinician, I feel like I'm inclined to send them like a text or a quick call anyway. So this way, you're using that feature to have there, like, in your system. So it's a bit more methodical. I see another question coming in. This is a good one, Kate. Some vets don't see certain species. Now I know, when it comes to maintaining control, I think this is a good one.
Yeah, and I mean, whether that's to do with allergies or they don't see exotic pets, every clinic is different and every vet is different. So we're really lucky to be able to completely customize it to what your needs are. So I've got the amazing Consult One here, and maybe or Consult One doesn't want to see annual vaccinations and doesn't want to see rabbits. I've got a terrible fear of rabbits. I don't know why. I became a vet, but I'm terrified of rabbits, so I can exclude those species. And again, that works if you've got any allergies or you don't do exotic animals, and it can be completely customizable. So you know that no one's going to book in with the wrong clinician or the wrong nurse or vet, depending on their needs and their specialities.
Nice. So I also did want to ask, I realized on the appointment type section, you can go to a certain level of specificity, especially if you want to let pet owners know the type of appointments that you actually offer. I think practices can be as specific as they want to be, right, Kate?
Well, yeah, as we all know, the biggest fear we've seen is we don't want to give pet owners too much control because we worry they're going to book in incorrectly. And I know from experience that they often try and do. So what I'd recommend is being as specific as you can when it comes to the names of the appointments. So perhaps instead of saying nurse appointment, we'll go into nail clipping appointment with a nurse, weight with a nurse, maybe a mobility check. And the more specific you can be, the easier it is for the pet owner to not make any mistakes and book into the right slots. And again, that means you can guarantee that it's going to be seen with a nurse or seen with the correct vet. So yeah, I'd say it's important to be as specific as you can. And the broader the range of appointment types, again, the more reduction in error in booking that we've seen.
So I know we went through, how we can manage with like vaccinations and things like that as well. There's another question coming in about, sending out like emails, like confirmation emails and things like that, which we know that sometimes just takes up time of the admin team. How can we automate something like that?
Yeah, so we've got automatic reminders. So is that letting them know about their appointments? Do you mean?
Yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, Vetstoria does automatic reminders. So you know you've got your appointment, and you can adjust how far in advance the pet owner receives that reminder. So we've got, they know that they're coming in, they get the reminder, and from there they can also reschedule if they need as well. And then what I showed you before with the digital marketing links, they can be added to emails, to SMS messages if that's what you send out, or you can add the QR code. So I know some clinics send out postcards as reminders, another great way to keep in contact with your pet owner. We can add this QR code to the postcards or leaflets, or whatever that might be, and the pet owner can scan it on their phone and take them directly to the booking tool. So it's just eliminating any need to call up for something that doesn't need to be urgent or doesn't need to go through a member of staff. So a few different ways that we can let them know about it.
Nice. I see another question has come in. Thinking about automation, what other ways can you support us in the clinic? Could you support with repeat prescriptions, for example? It's a good one.
Yeah, perfect. And I think repeat prescriptions is such a good example of something that, again, doesn't need a phone call. You know what medication they want. They've been coming to you for years. You know exactly what they need. So in the same way that we've got these custom links, I'll take you through how to create one, and you can create one for repeat prescriptions. Super easy. So you can go through, we've got repeat prescriptions. There we go. I've already made one. And again, what we like to do with repeat prescriptions is have the pet owner book in for a collection time. And again, it's completely customizable, and you can adjust it the same way you do a normal appointment slot. Our base, or what we suggest, is you've got the repeat prescriptions, you create this custom link. We tend to, we could do it a 15-minute duration because they're just coming in and picking it up, but we can push it back 48 hours. Or 48, we can even let them know in the disclaimer, 48 hours, not including weekends. And that means they can book in for a time to collect their medication. Your admin and reception team have time to make sure you've got that medication in stock. You can communicate with the pet owner or with the ordering forms if needs be, but it gives you that time and relieves a bit of pressure, and you know what's coming in and you know what to expect. And this link, when you make it, again, you can set up another calendar. We see it works best if you set up a calendar for a repeat prescription collection, and you've got that. You can see on the daily who's coming, what they're picking up, and you've had that time to prepare for them coming through. And the same way that you can see the QR code that is generated when you've made the link, you can pop that on thank you cards, on any pieces of paper that go into the repeat prescription bags, so they know that every time they want a repeat, they can scan and book online. Another great way to take a few minutes away from your reception team.
I know it's such a relief when you can do all these things to add more time to your schedule as much as possible. I know, Kate, you've been a good sport and taken a whole lot of questions, but do you think you'd have time for maybe we can take one more?
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away. I'm ready for them all.
So this one says, I have a graduate vet who takes 30 minutes for sick pets, where long-standing staff have 15-minute time slots. How is this accommodated?
Very easily. So you've seen how to make an appointment here. So we can add another appointment type, vaccinations.
Okay.
And you know that it's going to be for a certain clinician. So we'd create it as normal. So on the back end, it would look like a duplicate, but the pet owner won't see the duplicate, so you don't need to worry about that. But we can change the duration here to 30 minutes. Get that saved. And maybe you'd only want them to see returning clients. If you didn't want them to feel too much pressure with new clients, maybe just want them to see returning. And then when that's all saved and created, then similarly to how we discussed with certain clinicians might not want to see certain animals, we can adjust that. Certain clinicians don't want to see certain appointment types. So we've got the graduate, we want to give them a little bit extra time so they don't feel rushed, and they're making sure they're learning. So what we do is we'd exclude all appointment types bar the vaccination with the 30-minute duration. And this can be done all through the back end. And then maybe they really improve quickly, we can change it so they go back down to the 15 minutes as and when you see fit.
Nice. Okay, cool. Those are some pretty cool features. So yeah, I think we've taken as many questions as possible, and I know that's like a lot to unpack once you log into Vetstoria. And today we've been talking about how Vetstoria helps to maintain control, obviously, and that's around managing your time a bit better. And when you have like staff shortages, how can you use some of these features to make it easy for you and manageable and things like that. So I mean, maybe for some of you who've joined us today, or who will be maybe watching the recording later, some of these things might be a little familiar, or maybe sort of a refresher of sorts, and maybe you're seeing it for the first time. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, let us know, and we'll be happy to help you, tell you more about Vetstoria, or even help you implement some of these features if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I know it can be a little bit daunting sometimes. I know it's a little bit like learning another language, but I just want you all to be aware that there are so many different ways that you can maintain control and show the exact availability you'd like. It can be adjusted in so many ways. And as Ashara said, if there is any questions or you want to implement any of these changes, even if it's small as a slot exclusion, feel free to reach out. We'll send my meeting link at the end when we send out the video, and you can book in with me anytime and I can answer anything for you. I'd be more than happy to help.
Thanks, Kate. You've been awesome today. I know it's been a long day and you took all those questions like a champ. So thank you for joining, and thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who joined our discussion today. We hope that it helped you in some way. But if you do have any follow-up questions, yeah, feel free to just fire that email and we'll get back to you. Thanks, and we'll talk later.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.